My fiancée accidentally texted me her plan to get on my house deed, so I sent the screenshot to my lawyer, and by noon her name was gone, and so were her keys. 3 years with Victoria had been everything I thought I wanted in a relationship, and I genuinely believed we were building something permanent together. I'm a software engineer, been at the same company for 6 years, saved enough to buy a lakefront cabin that's been my sanctuary and best investment, and Victoria seemed to love everything about our life together. I was debugging code on a Thursday morning when my phone buzzed with what I initially thought was a sweet message from Victoria. Instead, I found myself staring at a text clearly meant for her friend Lisa. "Girl, I'm so close to getting on that deed. Brian trusts me completely, hasn't even mentioned a prenup with 5 months until the wedding. Once we're married, I'll have access to his investment portfolio too. He has no idea what's coming up. This lakefront property alone is worth $340,000 and growing. The plan is working perfectly. He thinks I actually love this isolated cabin life. Can't wait to cash out and move somewhere with actual civilization." I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold as the words sank in. The woman I'd been planning to marry in 5 months, the one who'd cried happy tears when I proposed at sunset on our dock, had been playing an elaborate long con. I immediately took screenshots, my hands surprisingly steady despite feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Within minutes, Victoria sent a follow-up text. "OMG, ignore that last message. Lisa and I are brainstorming plot ideas for this reality show pitch about fake relationships. You know how dramatic she gets with her creative writing projects." I stared at the obvious lie, impressed by how quickly she'd crafted a cover story. The Victoria I thought I knew would have been mortified and called immediately to explain. Instead, I got calculated damage control from someone who clearly thought I was stupid enough to believe her excuse. I called my real estate attorney Douglas, who I'd worked with on the cabin purchase. "Douglas, I need to see you immediately. I have a situation involving my property and my fiancée." When I showed him the screenshots an hour later, his expression shifted from curiosity to professional concern. "Brian, this is attempted fraud, and you need to understand something crucial. Victoria has no legal claim to your property regardless of your relationship status. She's essentially a guest without a rental agreement. Under state law, I can have her removed with proper notice." I felt a strange calm settle over me as Douglas explained my options. The woman who thought she was manipulating me had actually given me the evidence I needed to protect everything I'd worked for. The irony wasn't lost on me that Victoria's own words would be the key to removing her from my life and my property permanently. I executed my plan with the precision of a software deployment, starting at dawn while Victoria attended what she believed was a weekend yoga retreat in the mountains. Douglas had outlined exactly what needed to happen, and I approached it like any complex project, methodical, documented, and irreversible. My first stop at 7:30 a.m. was the bank, where I separated all our joint accounts and transferred my funds to new accounts she'd never had access to. The manager, Jennifer, looked concerned when I explained I needed to protect my assets from potential fraud, but the screenshots Douglas had reviewed made the process straightforward. By 9:15 a.m., I was meeting with a locksmith Douglas recommended, watching him replace every lock on the cabin and install a comprehensive security camera system with audio recording capabilities. "You want the works," he confirmed, installing motion sensors and smart locks that would create a digital record of any access attempts. While he worked, I coordinated with professional organizers who arrived at 11 a.m. to pack Victoria's belongings with military efficiency. Every item she'd brought to the cabin, furniture, clothes, kitchen supplies, even the throw pillows she'd insisted we needed, went into labeled boxes with photographic documentation. The crew loaded everything into a climate-controlled storage facility I'd rented for 3 months, prepaid in full. "Sir, are you sure about this timeline?" the lead organizer asked, impressed by the operation's scope. "She's got nice stuff here." "I'm absolutely certain," I replied, signing the storage agreement and keeping copies of every receipt. By 2 p.m., Douglas's paralegal posted a formal 24-hour notice to vacate on the front door, meeting all legal requirements for removing an unauthorized occupant. Victoria returned early from her retreat at 6:15 p.m., pulling into the driveway to find her key wouldn't work. I watched through the new security cameras as she discovered the notice, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and rage. My phone immediately started buzzing with calls I let go to voicemail per Douglas's specific instructions. "Brian, what the hell is going on? Call me back right now." The desperation in her voice was almost satisfying, knowing she was finally experiencing consequences for her calculated deception. By 8:30 p.m., she'd left 17 voicemails, each one revealing more of her true character as the fake concern dissolved into threats and demands. The woman who'd spent 3 years pretending to love our quiet lakefront life was now screaming about illegal eviction and promising to sue me for everything I owned. I saved every message, adding them to the growing evidence file that would protect me from whatever she tried next. Victoria's social media counterattack came within hours, a carefully crafted post claiming I'd suffered a mental breakdown and illegally evicted her from our home without warning. "Brian has become controlling and abusive," she wrote, "locking me out of the house we've shared for 3 years because of his paranoid delusions about my loyalty. I'm scared and have nowhere to go. Please share this so people know what he's really like." Her network responded exactly as she calculated, flooding my messages with accusations of domestic abuse and threats to contact my employer. I waited until the post had maximum visibility before responding with the original screenshots, including timestamps and our message history. The evidence spoke for itself, Victoria's own words revealing her plan to defraud me of my property and assets. Within an hour, her friend Lisa publicly apologized in the comments. "I'm so sorry, Brian. Victoria showed me these texts months ago asking for advice on this project. I thought she was joking. This isn't her first time doing this to someone." The tide turned immediately as people realized they'd been defending a calculated predator. Victoria's father Kenneth called me the next morning, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Brian, I need to understand what happened with my daughter. She's telling me you've lost your mind." I sent him the complete evidence package, including bank statements showing Victoria had secretly opened credit cards in both our names without my knowledge. Kenneth went silent for several minutes after I finished explaining. "Son, Victoria told me you were controlling her finances and forbidding her from working. She said she needed money because you wouldn't let her have access to anything." I laughed bitterly at the irony. "Kenneth, I've been paying for her business coaching certification for 8 months. Apparently, that program never existed either." The final revelation came when our wedding venue contacted me about suspicious changes Victoria had made to our contract. "Mr. Brian, we need to discuss the modifications your fiancée submitted last week. She upgraded everything to our platinum package, $68,000 total, and moved the date 2 weeks earlier. The deposit was declined, but she insisted you'd approved these changes." I realized Victoria had been trying to accelerate the timeline, probably hoping to get married and gain legal claim to my assets before I discovered her scheme. The venue manager seemed relieved when I explained the situation and canceled everything, refunding my original deposits immediately. Victoria called from a blocked number at midnight 3 days later, her voice artificially calm in a way that immediately put me on alert. "Brian, I think we can resolve this like adults. I have a business proposition for you." Douglas had prepared me for this exact scenario, so I activated the call recording app and kept my responses minimal. "I'm listening," I said, though every instinct told me this would be her final attempt at manipulation. "I know about your stock options and the cryptocurrency investments you think I don't know about," she continued with calculated precision. "I'm willing to disappear completely, no contact, no legal challenges, no social media drama, for a one-time payment of $75,000. Think of it as buying your peace of mind." The audacity was breathtaking, but she wasn't finished. "My friend Tyler has been helping me understand your financial situation better. He's very good with computers and has access to certain information that could be problematic for your employer. Something about falsified expense reports from your business trips." I felt ice settle in my stomach, not from fear but from rage at the calculated nature of her threat. While she talked, I pulled up my brokerage account on my laptop and discovered 89 failed login attempts from an IP address I didn't recognize. "Victoria, are you threatening me?" I asked, keeping my voice steady while documenting everything. I'm offering you a solution, Brian. Tyler found some interesting discrepancies in your company filings. It would be unfortunate if your boss received anonymous tips about expense fraud, especially when you're up for that senior position. I immediately implemented maximum security protocols across all my accounts while staying on the call. Douglas had told me to let her talk, gather evidence, and remain calm no matter what she revealed. 75,000, Victoria? That's oddly specific. It's enough for me to start fresh somewhere new. Tyler says it's actually quite reasonable considering what we could expose about your finances. The way she said, we confirmed this wasn't a solo operation. She had an accomplice who'd been coaching her through this entire scheme. The next morning, Douglas filed a police report for attempted extortion and computer fraud while I provided the recorded conversation and evidence of the hacking attempts. The cybercrime unit traced the IP address to a coffee shop Victoria frequented, and their digital forensics team discovered Tyler had left electronic fingerprints everywhere. Within days, they'd found emails between Victoria and Tyler discussing their plan to target me for over 18 months before she'd even met me at our mutual friend's dinner party. Federal investigators arrested Tyler within 10 days, and he immediately provided evidence to reduce his own charges, revealing that Victoria had been operating something called Crown Your Worth Collective, an underground consulting service teaching women psychological manipulation tactics to extract assets from romantic partners. I was contacted by Amanda, a former client who'd paid $799 for Victoria's Secure Your Future program that included modules on asset positioning, emotional leverage techniques, and exit strategy planning with maximum retention. Amanda's testimony was devastating. Victoria taught us exactly how to identify high-value targets, build false emotional connections, and position ourselves for financial gain before planned breakups. She had spreadsheets tracking our progress and celebrated when clients successfully extracted money or property from their partners. Through Amanda's cooperation, investigators located an archived version of Victoria's private membership site with testimonials from 23 women who'd successfully manipulated partners into transferring property, vehicles, or cash before executing calculated breakups. The most shocking discovery came when Douglas received medical records Victoria had submitted to the court during her legal challenge. She was 14 weeks pregnant with Tyler's child, which explained her desperate rush to secure my assets before anyone discovered the pregnancy. The timeline was damning. She'd gotten pregnant shortly after pushing me to set our wedding date, and Tyler had been coaching her remotely from another state where he was wanted for similar fraud schemes involving romance scams. Victoria's elaborate scheme unraveled completely when investigators found her detailed planning documents. She'd researched my financial background before our first meeting, identified the cabin as her primary target, and developed a 3-year timeline to establish trust before executing the deed transfer. Tyler had provided technical support for identity theft, credit monitoring evasion, and digital harassment tactics. Their email correspondence revealed discussions about my psychological profile and strategies for exploiting what they called my provider complex. The federal prosecutor explained that Victoria's operation had been running for over 4 years, targeting successful men through social connections and dating apps. She'd refined her approach with each victim, building increasingly sophisticated manipulation techniques. Tyler faced charges in multiple states for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy, with evidence suggesting at least 7 other victims across the country. Victoria's coaching program had generated over $94,000 in revenue from women seeking to financially exploit their romantic partners. When confronted with the evidence, Victoria finally broke down and admitted the entire relationship had been a calculated business arrangement. I needed financial security, she told investigators, and Brian seemed like the perfect target, successful, trusting, and isolated enough that he wouldn't get outside perspective on our relationship. The woman I'd planned to marry had never loved me at all. I'd simply been her most promising investment opportunity, selected and groomed for maximum financial extraction. Victoria accepted a plea agreement requiring her testimony against Tyler in exchange for 3 years supervised probation, mandatory shutdown of her consulting operation, and restitution payments to all identified victims. The federal prosecutor explained that Tyler faced 8 to 12 years for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges across multiple states involving at least 7 other victims. Douglas handled the civil settlement negotiations with surgical precision, ensuring Victoria would face maximum financial consequences for her fraud attempt. During the civil settlement hearing, the judge ordered a complete asset allocation from Victoria's criminal enterprise. She was required to surrender $94,000 from her coaching scheme revenue, $22,000 from selling gifts I'd given her including jewelry and electronics, and various items purchased with credit cards opened in my name without authorization. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. Victoria must pay $75,000 in damages for attempted extortion and emotional distress, return the custom-designed engagement ring worth $18,000, and contribute $30,000 to a victim's restitution fund for others harmed by her manipulation program. Victoria's father Kenneth testified about his daughter's pattern of deception dating back to college, revealing she'd been expelled for academic fraud involving falsified transcripts and plagiarized research. "I thought she'd changed," he told the court, his voice heavy with shame. "I believed her stories about Brian being controlling because I wanted to believe my daughter was capable of genuine love. I was wrong, and I owe Brian a formal apology for doubting his character." Kenneth's testimony was devastating to Victoria's credibility and showed the depth of her deceptive patterns. Tyler received 9 years after his prior convictions for romance scams in 2 other states were factored into sentencing. The judge noted his role as the technical architect of multiple fraud schemes targeting vulnerable individuals seeking genuine relationships. Victoria's coaching program was permanently shut down, and she was prohibited from operating any business involving relationship advice or financial consulting. The court also ordered her to undergo mandatory psychological evaluation and participate in victim impact programs. The most satisfying moment came when Douglas presented evidence of Victoria's attempts to manipulate the legal system itself. She tried to claim domestic violence, forge medical records supporting emotional abuse allegations, and even attempted to bribe a court clerk to delay proceedings until after her baby's birth. Each failed manipulation attempt added additional charges and extended her probation requirements. The judge's final statement was clear. "Ms. Victoria, your systematic exploitation of trust and affection represents a particularly cruel form of fraud that damages not only your direct victims but society's faith in genuine relationships." 4 months later, Victoria was living in a small apartment working 2 retail jobs while pregnant, her father Kenneth having refused to take her in after the trial revelations. "I transformed my cabin into a peaceful retreat, adopting 2 rescue dogs I named Douglas and Justice, which my attorney found both amusing and touching when I sent him photos." The irony of finding genuine loyalty from animals after being betrayed by someone I'd trusted completely wasn't lost on me. I joined a support group organized by Amanda and other victims of Victoria's program, now called Reclaim and Rebuild, where we shared recovery strategies and warning signs of manipulation. The group discovered Victoria's mentor was a woman named Phyllis who'd written several self-published books on strategic relationship planning and was now under investigation in 3 states for fraud conspiracy. Amanda had become a fierce advocate for financial literacy education, helping others recognize predatory relationship patterns before falling victim. My unexpected path to healing came through sharing my experience publicly. I started a blog documenting red flags in relationships that gained surprising traction, leading to speaking invitations at men's wellness events about protecting oneself from financial predators. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of men reached out with similar stories of manipulation and financial exploitation they'd never reported or discussed. My software engineering background helped me analyze patterns in their experiences, creating resources that law enforcement now uses in fraud prevention training. Amanda launched a legitimate financial literacy nonprofit for relationship transitions, hiring Rachel, another of Victoria's former clients who'd realized the program's true nature and refused to participate further. Kenneth occasionally sent brief text messages with updates about Victoria's restitution payments and expressions of shame about his daughter's actions. Brian, she made her third payment on time. I'm still processing how I raised someone capable of such calculated cruelty. Thank you for handling this with more grace than she deserved. The most surprising development came when Lisa, Victoria's original confidant from the accidental text, reached out with a lengthy apology explaining she'd been secretly documenting Victoria's schemes for months. I knew something was wrong when she started asking detailed questions about your finances and showing me fake relationship advice websites, Lisa wrote. I was planning to warn you but hesitated because of our friendship. I should have acted sooner, and I'm sorry you went through this betrayal. Her documentation became crucial evidence in several other cases involving Victoria's victims. My therapist helped me process the complex emotions of discovering that 3 years of my life had been an elaborate performance designed to exploit my trust and generosity. The hardest part wasn't the financial losses, which were fully recovered through restitution, but rebuilding my ability to trust my own judgment in relationships. Douglas often reminded me that Victoria's manipulation succeeded precisely because I'm a good person who assumes others share my values of honesty and commitment. Don't let her cruelty change your fundamental decency, he advised. The right person will appreciate your thoughtful nature without trying to exploit it. 6 months after the trial ended, I finally felt ready to consider dating again, armed with hard-earned wisdom about recognizing genuine connection versus calculated performance.